restaurant industry is changing. It's changing through both consumer habits, but also the technology that's driving where we're going to be going in the near future. Today, we're going to be talking about robotic dark kitchens. Is that a deal? Is it something that maybe is going to take over the food service landscape in the future? Let's find out and dive right in. My name is Paul Barron, and this is the Barron Report. So with us today, I've got the co-founder of Kitchen Robotics, Ofer Zinger. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. All right, so Ofer, let's get into a little bit about Kitchen Robotics. You know, the company itself, how you guys got started, kind of what your roadmap is for development of that thing right behind you there called the Beastro. I'd love to learn more.
So Kitchen Robotics was started about 2 years ago. And the main concept or the main idea or vision behind robotics was that we need to create an automated robotic kitchen where it's actually a programmable space where a variety of dishes can be planned, programmed, prepared, and delivered within a reasonable pricing, with a reasonable cost, and with reasonable speed. The main difference that we see between the Beastro, our automated robotic kitchen, and other products on the market is the main difference is in probably two main aspects. The first aspect is that the hardware and the software is planned as general purpose software. It means that we do not make a single dish. We try to make a variety of dishes. And the other one is that it was built and planned directly toward the back of house, the dark kitchen.
Right, right. So I'm looking at the device that appears right behind you there. Is that a typical, or do you feel like that's going to be a typical footprint for the Beastro as it starts to roll out into, you know, back of house restaurants in the future?
Yeah, that's a typical unit. It fits. It designs so it could fit a container, so it could be mobile as well, and it could also fit naturally the back of house of a standard kitchen. The sizes are about in meters. It's about 3 meters on 2.5, and it obviously it needs its own connectivity of electricity, of internet to operate, but it's a rather limited space, and within that space it is capable of doing a variety of dishes.
Interesting. So in terms of the technology, when you say a variety of dishes, doesn't necessarily have a menu, it's designed to kind of create something on the fly. Is this coming from a cloud-based type connectivity, or is this somewhat autonomous and it just checks back in every once in a while for updates, kind of like a Tesla?
So no, it's mostly it's cloud connected. Most of the control it comes from the cloud. You need an internet connectivity, obviously, to manage it. Within the cloud, we have a SaaS solution that controls, manages, and enables the entire robot. The entire connectivity is coming from the cloud. It means that you can design your recipes, design your menu, control your orders within a single space. And not only a single site or a single robotic location will be impacted, but sometimes you would be able to control or to update your entire chain, your entire menu with variety of sites. For example, if you add a single dish or an item to the menu, with a click of a button, you can update all your sites to add it to the hardware and to your software and to your menu and to your DSP connectivity.
So let's talk about, all right, so it's cloud connected basically all the time, much like some of the cloud POSs that are out there today, so you do need a solid and stable internet connection. Let's talk about the equipment itself, because when you look at, we've looked at everything from Beastro to Robotics. We've seen, even the coffee guys that have done some robotic programs there in San Francisco. I'm kind of curious, in terms of the hardware and the technology behind it, how does it handle portion control? How does it know, or what's its process for being able to build, say, a bowl? Let's just assume that I'm, a salad concept that's got, a kind of build it and go concept. How does that go about it? You're programming this in, it's got an array of product available to it, and it's just going into portion control on the menu recipe itself?
More or less, that's the correct approach. It starts by designing the menu and the recipes. It means that you go into our software and pick the exact amount, the exact cooking time, the exact timing, heating, even the speed of the mixing can be controlled. So once you have your menu design, you can you set up your what we call feeders, where you place the ingredients, and there is a pot which traverses and collects the ingredients from the feeders. It can go back and forth toward a plate, which is an induction plate. Inside the induction plate, the pot can be mixed and rotated. Once the dish inside the pot is ready, then the pot slides into a plating area where an actual person plates or packs the dish. And once the pot is being used, it's placed back into the system where it's being automatically cleaned and rolls back into the mechanism, so even the washing time can be saved.
So it's got its own self-cleaning system. Maintenance-wise, for an operator that's got one of these in the back of their house or back of operations, how much maintenance? Because if you're in a kitchen, you're doing cleaning constantly all the time. Food safety is a huge factor, especially in today. Kind of talk to me about the controls for cleanliness, especially when you look at, kind of what our world is dealing with right now. Talk to me about how that works. How does it maintain sanitization throughout the whole process?
So basically, it's fully sanitized, because except the part, then once the dish is finished, somebody needs to pack it to the right DSP, to the right packaging. The pot is being placed back into the system where it's being cleaned automatically, and the entire process after the cleaning till the dish is ready has no any manual labor associated with it. So on that aspect, it increases dramatically the level of sanitary.
So as far as the portioning control, and I guess, for me, it's just, I don't have a chance to see this in operation, but for portioning control, there's got to be some touch points of handling all these different ingredients, especially when you look at a menu that in some cases has, let's just say, 25 items on it. Now you're talking about a control mechanism of maybe 100 different particular ingredients. So being able to control 100 ingredients and dropping that into a process, where are the touch points? Because I've got to be able to, even a Chipotle bowl is going to say, okay, I'm going to drop the salad, I'm going to drop the beans, I'm dropping the chicken, those kind of things. Those are all touch points. How does the machine handle that?
So we have several types of feeders, and those feeders has not only have augers inside them that actually control the amount, but the system is also accompanied by a pot that has sensors that know what was the exact weight that was added on each step. Now, it's not that easy to control exact amounts of some of the ingredients, so the machine is constantly learning the right amounts and the right speed and the right augers per ingredient, and knows to improve over time, such that the actual difference between the requested amount and the actual amount in the pot will be minimized over time.
Okay, so all right, that's good. So I like the fact that it's basically bin style processing, I guess, and I'm sure if it's liquids or creams like a sour cream or a guacamole or something of that nature for a concept like that. But you could also look at it from a sauces standpoint. Those are almost like injectables. We've seen some of that in some of the robotic systems that we've discovered so far and that are kind of being deployed across the world. What is the turn time on a dish? How long does it take to get a dish from start to finish?
Well, it highly depends on the complexity of the dish. Obviously, we include the cooking time. We plan to, on an average menu, to reach somewhere between 40 to 60 dishes per hour.
40 to 60. What kind of cooking systems are in place? Is it all heat, sous vide? What's the process?
Oh, we use induction. Right now, we are using induction plates. The induction plates, the pots are being placed on the induction plates. It's also where the pots are being rotated. And we are planning to support other heating mechanisms in the near future.
All right, interesting. Induction, I like that. Okay, all right, so let's talk about unit economics, because this is something that, a lot of operators, with labor still being the #1 challenge today in the industry, and as we move forward, it's most likely going to still be a factor. Curious, when you look at unit economics in terms of the unit cost or potential unit cost and rollout plan for you guys. I know you don't have any on the ground right now, but what's kind of the roadmap for you guys, and where do you see a price point hitting? Is this going to be kind of a pay-as-you-go, software as a service type thing, or is this something it's a capital investment for an operator?
So we are planning to support the software as a service, or more specifically, what we call now the RAS, the robot as a service, and the pricing point would start at $6,000 per month, and this will enable a larger amount of partners to try our solution and see if it fits, and it's also a more convenient financing plan for a large variety of clients.
Yeah, so this is fully autonomous, being injected in terms of data, menus, all that kind of scenario through the cloud. So essentially you could drop into a dark kitchen. What kind of staff would you need to be able to work around the bistro? I'm assuming somebody to kind of maintenance and keep the product stocked, and then somebody basically to do packaging, delivery, etc. So it really cuts down labor from what I can tell. Maybe that's a 2-person operation, or are you guys seeing potential others?
You're right on the point. Basically, we see it depends on the peak and the load of the actual operation, but we see it as somewhere between 1 and 2 persons. The exact 2 person that you've mentioned, one should be handling the plating, because eventually there are plenty of deliveries to capture over the peak hour, and in between, sometimes the need to support the refilling of the feeders when any feeder clears, and there are potential alerts that show that, but eventually somebody needs to refill the feeder. You need to pause the system. Sometimes you need to pause the system for a second to refill a feeder. On peak hours, I guess there would be a need for 2 employees to support the bistro, but sometimes 1 would be enough.
All right, so what do I need in terms of space? If I've got, maybe it's an existing restaurant and I'm trying to simply increase my output, lower my cost of labor, is that a model that you guys are going after in terms of, hey, this is a potential channel that we want to supply? Or are you looking for companies that are doing upstart dark kitchens where there's nothing there, and they're essentially putting in a bistro to kind of create a restaurant, so to speak? What routes are you taking?
Well, I would have said that we are basically aiming for the restaurants that are trying to open their own dark kitchens in parallel to their actual activity. But since the current economy is going through tremendous changes, and we see that a lot of brick and mortar restaurants are turning into dark kitchen themselves. So there's also opportunity for dine-in restaurant to deploy Beastro and turn some of their activities into a dark kitchen as well.
Yeah. So that's going to be good for you guys. I'm kind of curious, when you look at the roadmap for technology development, where I could see something like this being deployed and being super beneficial is in, disaster areas, third world countries, things of that nature. Only problem is in many cases, internet isn't available. So if you were to create a product, do you have something in the roadmap that would be, it's already injected with all the data, you could drop this in with Jose Andres down in, a hurricane-stricken country and start feeding both first responders and people, especially at the output that this potentially has and the transportability of it. Is that something you guys are looking into?
Well, naturally, the internet connection is a tight demand. That the entire world is going towards cloud robotics,
Yeah.
and I guess that's the proper and the right architecture to follow in the next few years. We believe also that even in disaster area, it is possible to provide a rather limited internet connectivity these days. However, I'm not sure that the disaster market is an obvious or direct market. I would say that being mobile, we could easily be associated with high load areas, such as events, right, where you need to provide an immediate solution, or as other options that we see today, that a lot of DSPs are entering into the container space, for example, delivery editions,
right.
where they try to be mobile, so they would be able to be more dynamic, where they capture the relevant audience.
Yeah. I want to get on to this last portion of the interview here, talking about AI and kind of the future of robotics for food service. How far up the AI ladder does this device go? Is this more of just a machine learning type technology that's taking data from a menu and a recipe bin and it's just popping it into the machine, or is it learning on its own based on throughput, variations in menus, special orders, all those kinds of things? Kind of curious.
So we've started entering plenty of optimization techniques that point to various aspects of AI in the dish preparation world. One of those is related to actual load. We would like to know if tomorrow is going to be an average day or some high-low specific, and we've implemented some deep learning mechanism to try to predict that. On another aspect, we are working hard to predict the actual usage, to see if we have enough supply to support the actual predicted ordering or load over the system. And last but not least, we are also trying to predict exactly the amount of ingredients that we are using per dish and minimize errors or returns.
Yeah, I could see that being potentially usable for dish construct, because you have a finite data set that you would be pulling from. But once you get into predictive analytics on throughput, there's been, I could probably name 20 companies, all of which are in the graveyard, that tried predictive analytics through drive-through, QSR, all these different elements. The problem there is that you have so many data inputs that are uncontrollable. So how do you ever get to a point of predictive analytics? Weather on its own is probably one of the biggest factors on being able to repeat predictive analytics of a restaurant's performance at lunch in one day versus the very next. It's a torrential rainstorm, which wasn't on our beautiful calendar. And of course, the machine's going to have to say, hey, listen, am I looking at radar here? And now I'm applying that into just being able to deal with weather. Plus, gosh, we could go on and on about traffic patterns, consumer, any kind of social economic hit. A stock market move could change somebody's lunch plans, all those kind of things. How are you guys going in that direction with predictive? I'm kind of curious.
So, without sharing too much of our internal IP, we did consider some of the items that you've mentioned, and obviously we used historical data to test it. Some of the aspects you've mentioned show great results while trying to predict future usage, some of it less. Hopefully, the more data we collect, the better the prediction will be as we go.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I'm a big proponent of technology. When it's done and rolled out right, it can be a savior for an industry in many cases, and I think the restaurant industry is going through that right now. We're dealing with really an onslaught of new technology that's really starting to help restaurant operators at least make it through what's happening. When you look at the operators, and of course, a year ago, you could have asked operators this very question: are you interested in doing robotics and reducing labor and increasing throughput? A lot of people at that time, I would say, would be, probably in the less than 50% crowd. Now, I'm not so sure. I think today that's a much more increased value in terms of people who are ready for this kind of technology to hit the market. Are you finding that in your research in terms of operator acceptance?
Yeah, well, not only our research, but also investment banks are referring to this topic. And we have found that there are several important aspects, not only that robotics is reducing the actual cost and improving the margins, which is a very important aspect, especially now. Yeah. We found that many restaurateurs are interested in consistency, for example, that you cannot reach with manual labor. Some of them told us that they don't really care much about the reduction of cost. They care a lot more about consistency. Mm-hmm. Others are caring about easy deployment and reducing the dependency of finding the proper employees, the proper personnel, constantly hiring and finding the right personnel for the operation in multiple geographies and multiple areas. So there are many aspects right now that constantly promote even strongly the idea of adding robotics. Not only in the US, there are some countries where the average the median age keep increasing, and they don't have enough workforce to operate this type of working places.
Yeah, and I think we're probably going to be dealing with that here in the U.S. in about 20 years with our our birth rates dropping tremendously. But I do see that in a factor when you look at food safety, consistency. Obviously, the training cost alone on a new employee is one of the most expensive things a restaurant operator has to deal with. So if you're affecting that training cost alone of not having to replace that worker every 6 to 17 months, which is the average in the industry, you have really hit a home run if the product can work, stay consistent, be clean, no incidents, things of that nature. I think definitely robotics is going to make its way into food service space for sure. Kitchen Robotics, of course, co-founder Ofer Zinger. Great to have you on the show here today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we're going to continue our coverage here of kind of where the technology shift is really starting to take hold. Back in I'd say 6 months ago, everybody knows what happened. It was a big shift. Everybody kind of got their act together and dealing with kind of the shifting landscape of consumers and how they're eating out and what they're doing in terms of getting food. And now what I'm finding is there's a new wave of technology that's really starting to make impact in the industry, and I can see this coming through 2021. So make sure and stay tuned right here as we get more coverage right here on the Barron Report. Check us out on Spotify and newly on Amazon Music. All of our shows from Foodable Network are now available, podcasts are available over on Amazon Music. We started getting data already back early from Amazon, and it's been great. So all you Prime users, it's free to you to use out there. If you have a show idea, shoot it over to us, which is producer@foodabletv.com. My name is Paul Barron. I'll catch you next time on The Barron Report.